Welcome to another episode of Biz Money Talks with Tracey Bissett. I am your host, Tracey, and I am a financial coach for young adults and entrepreneurs. And it's really my privilege to work with both groups to help take the mystery out of money and to make sure things are really straightforward so people can get busy doing the things that they want to do in their lives and in their businesses. We are very fortunate today. We have a very special guest. We have Susan Gygax. So welcome, Sue, to the show.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. I'm so excited.
Excellent. And so Sue is the founder of Spectacle Talent Partners, a specialty recruiting firm that provides tailored full-service recruiting. The firm helps online business owners make their next sales, marketing, or operations hires without worrying about making a mistake or spending time talking to the wrong people, which I know I've done several times. So I'm sure many other people will know that pain and that feeling. And so before we jump in, I'd love if you can share a little bit more about your background and what a day looks like for you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, thanks again for having me. I love that you are really zeroing in on entrepreneurs. But what brought me here was a background in human resources and talent acquisition. I actually started as a human resources generalist many, many moons ago and took a turn into talent acquisition, which is unique. Most people do the opposite. They get out of talent acquisition as quickly as they can. There's burnout and first bummed out by all the things that recruiters manage. But I love it. And to this day, interviewing, and this makes me a little bit of a weird bird probably, but interviewing is one of the things I love to do. It's something, if I did it a million times, I would still do it a million times more. So what happened in my professional career in corporate America was found myself at these very high growth entrepreneurial companies. And they were multi-billion dollar companies, but they had a very much an entrepreneurial spirit, which served them well to get to the phase of growth that they were at. But their talent acquisition functions hadn't matured. So really what happened was their growth outpaced their function. I affectionately call these mom and pop talent acquisition functions. And so when I came in, I would develop very much a high performing team, as well as bring in processes and systems and tools and policies and all the things that you think about when you need to help mature a function. So my teams and I were successful in hiring people across quite a few different industries and levels. I personally have recruited everything from truck drivers and personal assistants to nurses and CNAs to surgeons to C-suite executives and all sorts of things in between. But what really sort of brought things full circle for me and why I founded Spectacle Talent Partners and why I focus primarily on online business owners is because growing up, actually, my family owned a restaurant. We owned a small business. And I remember thinking that my parents built this fantastic business, something that they loved. They developed a beautiful community, but they didn't have the right people in place. And so they very much were chained to the restaurant in a lot of very real ways, which you know, they had 5 kids and they had other things that they wanted to do in their life. And so my passion for working with small businesses is to help sort of rectify some of those things that I see other passionate, savvy, smart, growing businesses do, which is unchain themselves from sort of that work-life struggle and be able to really take their seat as the CEO of their business.
Excellent. I love that. And a couple things just to comment on.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of working with many small business restaurant owners in my teen years and my university years. And I can tell you, it's definitely challenging working in a family business when you're not a family member. So I've seen all that firsthand. Wonderful experiences I had, and they gave me waitressing starts when I had no experience. So that was fantastic. But also know that business owners need lots of support, and I can hear your passion shining really through. And we're here to help make things easier for business owners, because if you've got it handled on the talent side, and business owners are only as strong as the people around them. We can only go as fast as everybody's going together. And so it's so important that we do have the right team. but I know that it's imperative that we actually focus on it, because we might not recruit very well. Many of us are really guilty of hiring too late, well after the need has long been there, and now our customer service is suffering. We may not be giving it the attention it needs. We've got it on the side of our desk, and doing it ourselves, are all kind of things I'm sure you encounter regularly. So I'm so glad that you're here to talk to us today, because when the right team is in place, when we are serving our clients really well, sales and cash flow comes along with that, which is ideal. And certainly we want everyone to be, as you said, the CEO of the business. And I'm constantly talking to entrepreneurs about this, being the CEO overall, especially on the financial side, but from an HR standpoint, we need to do it as well. So that's why we're here today, to have this conversation. Now, I know so many business owners know what recruiters do and who they are, but some might not be really familiar with that term. If they started from the ground up right out of high school, or even before that, they may not be aware if they haven't had a corporate experience. So to level set before we dive in, what is a recruiter and how do they help business owners?
Yeah. So recruiters, in the simplest sense of the word, are folks who sit at the intersection of the market, the mission, and the position that a small business may have, or a big business. So there's all these terms we throw around: third-party recruiter, contract recruiter, internal recruiter, external recruiter, corporate recruiter. We toss around all these things. Regardless of how recruiters self-identify, each of them understands that they sit at that intersection and are therefore accountable to each one of those stakeholders, which is something that's a little bit unique, I think, in the sort of the world of business. At the heart of it too, I would say recruiters are people connectors. The one thing I always say to people is, I am looking to rule you into this process, not try and rule you out. So by talking and engaging with people, you are able to explore how it may be beneficial for them, as well as for your client or your department, or in my case, the small business owner that I'm working one-on-one with.
And so it's not just about, okay, I ticked the box, here you go, here's a person. You're trying to make sure it's a mutual fit so that everybody's winning.
100%. I mean, any recruiter, sort of can take those transactional accounts and kind of go through the steps, those tactical steps. But for me, I really strive to become a trusted advisor. And that's what I did at those businesses I mentioned earlier. I was working directly with these CEOs of these big businesses. And I would sometimes look at them and, we'd having these one-on-one meetings about whatever executive we were looking to hire, which, by the way, many times was a brand new position we just created, and we were just trying to figure out what that would look like. And I would earn their trust to be able to say to them, you need to talk to this person. Like, based on what I know about the market, what I know about our position, and what I know about our mission, this is somebody that's worth your time to talk to. And when you have that trust, they may be a little hesitant, but so many times have they come back and said, yep, great conversation. Let's, take the next steps, whatever that was. Excellent. That's what I love. Yeah.
And so I think that's cleared up who they are. And then you're that connector with the employer, right? To help them really take it off their plate, listen to what they're looking for in that role, and try to find the right people.
Exactly. I did try initially, so we talk about this journey of small business. I tried to teach folks how to do this. So compare it to helping people learn how to fish, right? Mm-hmm. And the small business owners are like, Sue, we don't want to learn how to fish. We want you to catch the fish. We want you to scale the fish. We want you to cook the fish. Just serve us the fish. So I'm like, okay, that's awesome. I can do that too. So it really sort of was this organic way that I learned how to use for the 12 plus years, however long it was that I was really working with these CEOs at these entrepreneurial companies, and sort of realized that's what I had been doing. I was doing lots of other things in the scope of my role as it continued to expand. But at the heart of it was helping lead and guide sort of from that framework that I talked about.
Excellent. And certainly you're able to help so many different business owners because of your work across various industries. So you know how things are kind of working and you keep your finger on the pulse of it. And that, before we get into best practices, would really love to hear your thoughts on what's actually happening in the world of work. We've seen lots of headlines lately. Pandemic has definitely changed business as usual. So what are you hearing from employers as well as employees in terms of their observations, the things they would like to have in an ideal world, and really any challenges? So maybe let's start first with employers.
Sure. So I would say, at the macro level, because there was so much uncertainty, we very much leaned on what was certain. And what came out of what we've been dealing with all these year and a half or more at this point is the things that are important to us. And how that idea has translated into the market, for employers, is really needing to think about how they were going to meet that expectation that was now top of mind for people that were their current employees, but in my world specifically, people that they were interested in attracting to their business. So how did they do that in a way that was meaningful and authentic to their particular organization? I think that was one that's key. And I think for employers with hiring sort of at that next level down, it's important to know a couple things about where you are from a growth perspective. So entrepreneurs, you sort of have this proof of concept, which is probably you and maybe a contractor, and then you start to have this growth cycle, and then you have sustained growth. So knowing where you are and sort of that growth trajectory for your own business will help give a lot of clarity to know who to hire and what that might look like, because hiring is definitely not one size fits all, regardless if you're hiring a contractor or an employee or anything else. And I think, that we saw pockets, right? So hospitality was hit hard. They had to go full stop. And then, at least here in the US, they had to restart full on. And managing that crisis, which is what it was, has really taken its toll on unfortunately, too many hospitality businesses. On the other hand, the other pocket is technology. They're booming. Yeah. These online, business providers, the Amazons or the Ubers, all those different things, booming. So it's this very unbalanced expression that we found some of these things kind of become very apparent and very uncomfortable for employers and for people who were maybe finding themselves out of work, very surprisingly, or, just took another look at what do I really want to be doing right now?
Yeah. And is that the main thing you're hearing from potential candidates? After going through this is how I want to work. This is my value I can contribute, not interested in deviating from doing it in a way that suits me and maybe my family and my life and all of that?
Yes, I think that there's this, so I've talked about this significant imbalance. And so we're starting to see a bit more of a balance. So, there has to be a writing of that. So yes, I think folks are becoming much more confident and clear about what are those certainties and what are those things I'm not willing to give up. And employers are doing the same thing. But I think it's going to take a bit of time. So this whole idea of I could work remotely, so I could live in Utah and earn a New York salary just isn't practical. The market won't sustain that, right? I talked about those intersections. I look at the market and I'm like, no, that's not happening. Sounds good.
We've certainly seen that in the news that you can live wherever you want to, but you're going to be paid accordingly based on where you choose to live and the cost of living there. So, and some roles will always demand an in-person presence. And so if you want to work in that industry, in that environment, that's your choice. So you get to choose, do you want to do that work? And so with some, there's more flexibility than others. So
right. Exactly. Yep.
Excellent. Well, I think that gives us a good kind of overlay. And so, what success tips and strategies can you share with the business owners who are watching when it comes to hiring as well as working with recruiters? And so, I'll let you share as you would like across those two, because I think that hiring in itself is very challenging. And then there's probably keys to success when you do work with a recruiter to make sure it goes well.
Yeah. So one of the most important things that I explain to folks is understanding your growth stage. So it was eye-opening for me when I came into entrepreneurship. Out of the structured world of corporate was what felt like the wild, wild west, especially when it came to hiring. Just hire somebody for the thing you don't want to do. Have 3, 4, 5 contractors. Sort of there was all of this noise around hiring. So what I strive to do is, one, give people real clarity about who they need to hire, what they need that person to do. So there's this idea that I have, and I talk with my clients about this idea of a one hire multiplier and helping them see that, right? So if you can make a hire and draw a line between that hire and your increased revenue, you're on a good path. If you can't do that, please don't hire a contractor. Please don't hire an employee until you understand how to draw that line and what that means. Other thing about hiring, and this is very practical, have money in the bank. So whether you have multiple business streams or one business stream of revenue, you want to make sure you have at least 3 months of whatever you intend to pay that person in the bank. And I say this for both contractors and employees because it relieves that tension, especially when someone's making that leap from contractors to employees, but it relieves that tension of, oh my goodness, my things are going lower, they're not going up, because you're starting to create a new way in which you're working. So giving themselves that cushion gives your new person a place to also learn and grow and, learn how they can develop their career and stay with your company. That's the ultimate goal, that you bring people in that can stay with you.
Excellent. Well, I love those. So understanding your growth stage and where you are, know who you want and what you want them to do. So being clear on that. And I love what you said about the multiplier. How is it going to tie into revenue? Because you're right. People just hire. And I've heard that a million times. Just hire for what you don't want to do. It's everywhere. It's like a slogan. So being very intentional about that, and love that you tied it into the finances about having the 3 months in the bank, because it's going to take time. Even if they're an expert at what they do, you need to work together to share your vision, how you expect it to go, and how the two of you are going to work together to make that a reality in your business.
Right.
Because every business is going to be a little bit different.
That's exactly right.
Excellent. Such great tips. Now, when you think of employers, as well as you may think of employees who are coming along and you're recruiting them, what missteps do you often see people make?
Oh, goodness. Well, we hit on a couple.
Yeah.
We hit on a couple of them. One is just hire somebody for the thing you don't want to do. Get better answers. Start with better questions, right? So this is a very common interview principle. So let's ask a better question. So we kind of touched on that one. So that's one misstep. The other misstep is assuming that hiring a contractor is less expensive for them than hiring an employee, which again goes back to sort of understanding where you are from a growth stage and some of those things. And if somebody finds themselves needing to hire a contractor, there's specific steps you can take to make sure you're hiring the right contractor. Because if hiring an employee, the average is about 38 hours to hire one person, which feels overwhelming.
Wow.
And it is, right? So I don't know if most folks don't probably have an hourly rate that they go by for the most part, especially in the online space. But if you took, I can't do the math now, $300 an hour times 38 hours, whatever that is. Yeah. That's a lot of money without a lot of, if you're not having the clarity, if you're not making the connection to revenue, if you haven't done the due diligence on the front end. Because the other thing that I see people do is they ask for a referral. And that's a great place to start as a part of an overall hiring plan, but asking for a referral is not a hiring plan.
Yes, absolutely. And I know lots of people who hire just the referral without giving any thought to the things you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Super important. Well, I think everybody's heard those. So if you've done them in the past, or you're going to take one of those steps that Sue just mentioned, take a step back and kind of pause and do that thought work with that little checklist you just provided us with. Now, when you work with your clients, what results are they seeing when they work with you and your team?
Well, hires that they're excited about in that stay, which is awesome. That's my ultimate, right? That's what I look for people to be able to see. But I think what they don't realize they also get is the clarity and the confidence of taking those steps, because let's not underestimate the leap that it takes for somebody to go from, if we had an employee mindset, and now all of a sudden we have to take on this brand new mindset of becoming an employer, or as we said before, the CEO of our business, and getting the clarity around how I do that well without getting on what I've seen on the flip side is these smart, savvy business owners who get on this hiring spinning wheel of, I hire somebody, 3 weeks in, I'm going, oh my heavens, what happened? This person interviewed so well, I gotta now let them go. I mean, this cycle becomes very destructive in a lot of ways. So giving them the confidence and the clarity of making the right step, and even giving them guidance as to those better questions to ask, how to do a structured interview, making sure that they're checking references. In recruiting, I always say we trust and verify. I trust that everything you're telling me is true, but I'm going to verify.
I love that. And that's a principle I have. And that's kind of on the financial coaching side. And certainly when I was a risk manager, I would tell people, I'm going to read the loan applications and I'm going to spot check some things. And if it starts to unravel, I'm going deep and I'm going to unravel the whole thing. But if the spot check works, it's good. I got my verification and I'm moving on.
Yep.
So all aspects of our lives, we've got to do that.
That's right.
Excellent. Well, I think that's fantastic. And I'm sure that you're saving them lots of anxiousness. I'm sure they're feeling a lot more calm about the process, but you're also saving them time, because process could go on for quite a long time if they're trying to do it themselves, because they're going to start and stop and they won't be able to dedicate the time. Client deliverables are going to get in the way and all that other stuff. So it really keeps that probably the timing tight. And I imagine the communication with the candidates goes a lot smoother too.
Absolutely. Because, and this is one of the things I believe to the core of who I am, is that respect is the ultimate connector. And if anybody spent any time on LinkedIn, and you would see people who apply to a job and don't hear anything back, or do rounds of interviews and don't hear anything back, or on the other side, small business owners, back to one of those mistakes, is they solve problems through their recruiting process that they don't have. So they brought with them maybe their big business experience if they were involved in recruiting at our hiring manager at any level. And so they put all these gates up that make it difficult for people to get through, or they think they have to go through extensive interview processes. And I help people sort of navigate all of that. So on both sides, we're making those connections in a very real, authentic way. Doesn't mean everybody gets every job they apply for. That's not realistic.
Yeah.
But it does mean that through the process, folks feel respected and valued.
Excellent. Well, I love that. And that's so important. Are there any final tips you'd love to leave the business owners with today? And it might be something you've already mentioned that you would love to reiterate, because it's just so important. You want to make sure people take it away, or it might be something new that's kind of summing up everything that you talked about.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's so critical for folks, and again, we touched on this. Do you remember Top Gun, however long ago that movie came out? Yeah. And the air traffic guy says to Maverick, call the ball. And Maverick says, Maverick has the ball. this idea that the person in charge takes charge. That for me was just, a very visual explanation. The ball is the optical landing system, whatever. We're not far from Annapolis, so so we see all the midshipmen. So maybe that's why this resonates for me. But taking their seat as CEO, right? Having that understanding of what their role is. And once people start to really get comfortable with that, so many things in business, whether it's the money management side or the cash flow side, certainly the people and leadership side, all of those things become so much more meaningful. And that intention just follows through all of that business. So that would probably be the one thing that I would share, that I think is so critical when people are at that stage in their business and they're ready to go, but they're thinking, oh my goodness. So I'm here to help.
Excellent. Well, I love that. And you've shared so many things. They're fantastic with us today. What are you working on now, and where can people go to learn more about you and your services?
Yeah. So I love working one-on-one with online business owners and CEOs of small businesses. That is my heart back to, growing up with my parents building and running their business. But that connection is something that I value. So working one-on-one, if you're interested in making your first or next sales, marketing, or operations hire, you can tag me here. I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. My website, Spectacle Talent Partners, there's a phone number there. There's an email there. I make it really easy. I don't hide. I'm not trying to bob and weave on anybody. I'll make it really easy to find me. We could set up a conversation, have an introductory call, see if I can help you if you're ready for that. But at the very least, get some clarity out of that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Sue. And we're going to post, after the live is done, I'll post those links in the chat on LinkedIn and Facebook. And certainly if you're catching it on YouTube, it's in the notes for the episode. So I really appreciate everything you've said today. One thing that's staying with me, I loved how you described it as the intersection of the market, the mission, and the position, if I've got it right. And really how you're thinking about it from this broader standpoint. And it's not just there's a gap, I'm going to find someone to fill that gap, but really looking at it holistically and how you can help business owners do that in a way that they can get that clarity, understand the who, what they want them to do, and really bring up their leadership game in the process as they're learning from you through this process. So thank you so much for sharing all your insights with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Great to be here and such a great conversation. So much fun. Thank you.
You are welcome. And so before I let everybody go today, I want to invite you to our free Financial Foundations to Entrepreneurial Peace training, which takes place starting on September 20th. This is for business owners who are trying to step into that CEO role on the financial side of their business. We're going to get into the difference between profit and cash flow, dig into pricing, both from the technical number side, but as well as the money mindset that falls there with pricing as well as navigating those challenging stakeholder conversations around money. So you can head over to bizpeace.com and get registered, and we would love to see you join us there. And then for those who want to keep the conversation going, we do have our Biz Money Club that we meet weekly. It's a casual meetup to talk about the things that are happening in our business. And I know I've heard many times around hiring, and I need to get some help. And so that's a great place to talk about that. So at bizmoneyclub.com, you can get registered for that. Until next time, take good care and stay financially fit.